Three, two, one.
Action.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We are here today on Movie Talk with Nick and Uncle Frank, known as Untitled ZX. And
Yep.
today is episode six. Wow, six episodes. Pretty good, Nick.
Mathematically, we should be at 100 by the start of 2028. I counted.
Okay. Well, let's just get through number six. How was your weekend?
Um, let's see. How was my weekend? Boring, uneventful, nothing out of the ordinary.
Except we had a big snowstorm here on the East Coast.
We did, in fact. It's not terrible compared to the one a couple of weeks ago. The one a couple of weeks ago, that was bad. But
Yeah, it hit other parts of Jersey, I think, worse than we did.
yeah, I think I heard the
Did you,
shore was pretty bad.
did you see any movies this weekend?
I did. I saw Sony Animation's latest film. It's called Goat. That's exactly what it sounds. It's a basketball movie, but it's animated and it's
Uh,
about an actual goat. I enjoyed it for the most part, although it was a little excessive with the product placement at times. It looked very good.
so you enjoyed the movie when you told me you were gonna go see this. I'm like, what are you seeing this movie for? Like, an animated basketball movie just doesn't seem like the thing you would go to see.
I like the studio. That's the same studio that did most prominently the Spider-Verse animated films, which I think are among the
Yeah.
greatest comic book movies of all time.
Uh-huh.
Sony just in general with their animation department has been on a really strong run these last couple years. Not so much their live action department giving us bangers like Craven the Hunter and Morbius, which were not good. Not good
Mm.
at all.
Was the story decent here?
Yeah, it was pretty run of the mill, like it's your uplifting, like sports drama type of movie. But
I assume the good guy won in the end.
I think it's the art style that really sort of carried it for the most part, which seems
Right.
to be the thing that's been carrying a lot of Sony Animations movies because they sort of branched off of the style they created for Into the Spider-Verse in their last couple
Yeah.
movies, but they alter it stylistically to match the tone of this movie. So this feels like it's branching off of that Spider-Verse style, but it feels rougher almost, this particular
Mhm.
incarnation of that style, which
Gotcha.
suits the tone of the movie better.
Was there an actual goat in the movie?
The main character was an actual goat, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Would you suggest people see it?
Yeah, I'd recommend it.
Okay. I'm gonna wait for it to come on something streaming.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, today our agenda is that we are going to talk about what it takes to make a good script, five things to be paying attention to when making a good script. We are going to talk about James Bond Spectre, which I just watched this week as well.
Yeah, and I saw that a couple weeks ago myself.
And we are going to actually I watched another Star James Bond movie as well. So
Which one?
I watched Casino Royale.
Oh, so you're going all out of order. Got it.
Oh yeah, I don't care about the order. Yeah. And then we are going to talk for Star Wars time. We're going to talk about the new Mandalorian trailer. So
Yeah,
let's get into it. First topic is about what does it take to make a good script. So I know you've been into script writing lately, right, Nick?
that is my primary focus, which I've
Yeah.
I've learned a lot the last couple of years that a lot of these things are a lot more confusing than I thought they'd be. But
Let's go through. You gave me a list here. So tell me what's one of the first things you got to worry about.
you've got to make sure, and I'm going a little out of order compared to what we wrote in the document here, but you need to understand what a director's job is because the
Uh,
director and the script writer, the screenwriter are intrinsically like a very linked. I've had several screenwriting courses where we do directing exercises based on scripts. I mean, that professor's whole mindset is the script doesn't actually matter so long as you can direct it well. You can have the worst dialogue known to man, but if you direct it well enough, it'll be fine.
hmm.
And
What? So when you say there's got to be a good screen direction in the screenplay, what would be a good screen direction?
a good screen direction, yeah, I did not think this through, to be honest, but
That's okay. I mean, are you saying it's got to be detailed to the director, or does the director get a lot of leeway, would you say?
I'd say it depends on the writer and the director. If they're a team that sort of understand each other, they've worked together a lot and sort of know how each one operates, so they've sort of figured out a way to work together, then that's one thing. But if it's just some random writer, it's all about the writer and director sort of understanding how each other, how they think about certain things.
Because doesn't between the script and the movie, they do a whole bunch of other steps as well. The whole before they go shoot the movie, the whole thing is planned out. They got storyboards, right? Like you would think a storyboard is a lot about screen direction too.
Yeah, storyboards and scripts are linked pretty closely as well.
Yeah.
A lot of
Okay.
the like the basic, like the broad story related things that are connected to bringing things to life, because the you sort of need to understand how a director works on set in the moment when writing a screenplay, but the director has to understand how a script format translates from the page to the storyboard to the actual set, whilst
Right.
balancing all these different elements as well, from
Yeah.
production design, we've got set designers, costume designers, makeup designers, the actors, the doubles, the stunt
We,
people.
I would imagine the script that you start with changes after a storyboard, changes when you start shooting in some way. So like it's
Oh yeah,
probably evolving.
absolutely. Good percent of the time, the script. That is, you always go through several drafts of a script as well. The first script you write is not going to be the final screenplay used for the film. You're going to go through two, three, four more drafts before you
Does
have
the
a
screen
final
does the
shooting.
screenwriter usually on set as well?
I think it depends because a lot of the time the screenwriter will also be the director.
Hmm.
A lot of directors
Right.
will write their own films, and when they do so, a lot of the time they'd have to be on.
Well, of course,
Otherwise,
they're the same person, so of course, yeah.
when they're not the writer, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think they have to spend nearly as much time on set, but I do think they
It
come
might
on.
depend on the director whether he wants them there or not, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Depends on whether or not they want sort of to have them sort of guide them
Hmm.
the direction.
All right, so we need a script needs to have good, clear screen direction. What else?
You need to sort of, and this is not necessarily screenwriting specifically, but just writing in general, you need each individual character to have their own unique voice. You want
Mhm.
them to sort of stand out. You want it to sort of sound like the main cast of characters isn't just the same character talking to themselves, it feels like. You need them to have these little details that make them different from one another, that sort of make them
Yeah,
stand out and makes those interactions between these characters not sort of fall flat.
yeah. And that means you need to do what? Make them real, I guess, or make them relatable, I'd imagine.
I've taken a lot of writing-based classes outside of my major. I've done a
Hmm.
lot of professional writing courses. I'm in a novel writing class now, and I've heard people specifically suggest just go outside, sit outside, and just take notes. Just listen to people talking around you, and just sort of take notes. Because you want them to come off as people as well. You don't want these characters
Real. Yeah.
to feel like these nothing burger, like over the top caricatures, because people won't be able to connect with them in that way when they're
It
these.
is interesting probably to listen to other people talk. Yeah, because I don't know. I've found people talk in many different ways. Frankly, the way you and your generation talk is different than the way I talk. So I would imagine if you're writing a screenplay, it's very hard to pick up the voice of people you don't know very well.
Yeah.
Like it'd be hard for me to write in the voice of a Gen Z person. You
Yeah.
guys use language I don't even understand. So,
Hey, I don't understand half of it either, and I'm part of this generation, so
mm, okay. All right. So you got to have good characters. What else?
um you don't want, and this sort of goes back to sort of characters, you don't want dialogue to be exposition heavy. You don't want characters talking at the audience. You don't want your
Mhm.
characters like explaining the backstory. Like you want to create screen directions, and if you want to go crazy with exposition or backstory, do it in a more.
Unless you break the wall, right? Like Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, but that's something that's incredibly difficult to pull off, and very few people think it's even worth trying.
Yeah. Well, you got to have the right kind of movie for it. So
Yeah,
you
it's a
don't want
little.
to be in the middle of a drama and then somebody's breaking the wall to explain what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even then, though, even if you're not breaking that, though, a lot of people will have the issue of where they'll have characters sort of explain things that happened in the past. And even though it might not be specifically directed at the audience, it'll still feel like it's direct. It'll still feel like they're talking at the audience
Yeah.
just because they'll be like explaining this in-depth thing to someone else who was probably there too. And it's like, no one talks like that. It just sounds weird.
Yeah. Well, maybe you gotta do a flashback, I guess. You could do a flashback.
Do things visually. And there's visual ways to sort of build up to things like that and not
Mhm.
go overboard because you also don't want to treat your audience like they're stupid.
Right.
Like you want to treat them like they are intelligent beings capable of, thinking and understanding things and not spelling everything out to them in the most overt way possible.
Yeah, respect your audience.
That
Yeah.
actually leads into my next point about the thematic prowess when it comes to the next these 3 points all sort of in link with one another just so I can sort of segue in.
Go for it.
So this
Yeah.
this you've got to have a strong theme for a story as well. I feel like most of the points I'm making aren't necessarily script writing points specifically, but writing in general.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're related, yeah. And I guess these relate to the movie overall too, right? So,
yeah, because it's a strong theme. You want to have this strong, like, narrative thread that connects, this thematic thread that connects the narrative and the story all
hmm
without explicitly saying it, though. You don't want characters to talk at the audience. Again, back to the last point, you don't want them to straight up say what the theme of the movie is. You want it to be sort of like you can tell
Yeah.
it's there, but without treating your audience like they're stupid.
Yeah, and you want them to feel the theme in a way, yeah. I
Yeah,
guess this is why it takes 3 or 4 iterations for a script to come together because you got to fix all these things probably.
absolutely.
Okay. All
And
right. Do we get them all? We think we got all the big
yeah,
pieces?
I did have one more, which is sort of specific to like multi-film series or
hmm
franchises. You want to make sure there's this thematic connection between installments. Like you want them to feel consistent, not necessarily like continuity wise. Like if you look at something like Star Wars, consistent continuity has not existed in that franchise since like the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
People whine and moan about how Disney like made it so that nothing is consistent anymore. But I'm like, Star Wars hasn't had a consistent like lore since like 1980. So, but what matters is not necessarily a consistent continuity, which I mean, a consistent continuity is important, but if you like have things that don't entirely line up, it's not the end of the world, so long as it feels like you're sort of continuing the thematic thing, the
Yeah,
them
I get that, especially if you have a characters. You can't have a character that feels one way, and then you get to the next movie, and that character just talks differently, feels differently. Like, yeah, it doesn't,
You want them like if they change as a character, you want it to be progressive. You want it to be an
yeah,
evolution where like they start off one way and imagine it's like a 3 movie arc for this character. They start off one way, they change a little bit, and they're at this way at the end of a movie. And then the next movie, they're the same way they were at the end of the last one, and they change throughout that one.
yeah. Although I'll tell you, I remember when I was watching Harry Potter movies, and I know they switched the directors, and like the way they had the scenery changed, and the way it was filmed changed, and it looked all different. Like it felt like just totally different kind of movie or something because of it. So.
That franchise is sort of bizarre because 2 movies into it, it had a complete and total tonal shift.
Yeah,
After because
exactly. That was crazy.
the first two were directed by Chris Columbus, who did
Home
things like
Alone.
Home Alone is
Yeah.
one of his most he's did other things. I'm blanking on what things right now, but I know he's done a handful. He does more of those like family friendly adventure movies, but once you got to the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban, you've got Alfonso Cuarón, who did like Children of Men, doing
Yeah, it felt weird and different somehow. So, but I can
everything.
imagine just in a script itself, you got to be real careful of that too.
Yeah.
So, do you know any movies you would say have really great scripts or?
I've never really been able to say what specific
I
film
guess
that.
it's hard because you don't see the script versus the movie very often, you
Yeah,
know?
you see the finished product, which the script is one part of the product. One thing
Yeah.
I have noticed, it's easier to point out a bad script in a movie than it is in a good movie. In a good
Yeah.
movie, it's like everything works and the screenplay is one part of it. And like you know it's good, but you can't pinpoint exactly why it's good. But if there's a bad screenplay, you can tell. There's been a couple movies that have just the most nonsensical scripts I've ever seen.
Like what?
Most recently, it comes to mind the Five Nights at Freddy's films recently, which the fans of the games absolutely love because, oh my God, look at the thing I recognize, which is unfortunately how half of Hollywood operates these days. It's like, we're going to sacrifice decent storytelling for, look at the thing you remember.
Yeah.
And those are some of the most just atrocious examples. The screenplays for those films, they sort of nothing make not half of the story is just convoluted. They leave things unanswered that seem like they should be incredibly crucial, and they shoehorn in plot lines that just don't go anywhere. The first movie had a subplot about a custody battle, except they just dropped it two-thirds of the way through the movie and just never mentioned it again.
That's got a weird beginning, I think, because of the way the video game started and came about. And like, yeah, so it's not crazy that it feels the same way when it came to a movie as well, that it's just disjointed. But yeah. Now you've been writing scripts? What have you been
Um,
working on?
Mostly short things, and I haven't filmed most of any of them. I haven't written anything feature length yet. I've got something I'm working on feature length, but I'm not very far into it right now. So
Yeah.
eventually I'm going to write some longer screenplays, feature length ones. I've got plans for a 10 film sci-fi franchise. So
Okay. And you haven't written any of those?
no, it's sort of the point where it's like I have all these ideas, but I don't know how to translate these ideas from basic conceptual ideas to a
Yeah.
fledged story, mostly because it's a large cast of characters, and
Mhm.
something you sort of figure out is that writing for this like vast cast of characters, especially characters who are meant to have like they're similar ages, similar interests. It feels like, how do you make them unique? How do you make these characters stand out from one another? And it's incredibly difficult to pull off.
Yeah, well, one of your points was you have to well-define distinct characters, and if you got too many characters, it's pretty hard to give them enough due
Yeah,
in a
it's
in a movie.
harder than it sounds. It really,
Yeah.
I explain how important it is, and then I'm like, yeah, by the way, it's like really difficult.
Well, the thing I always hear about writing is that you just got to do it. You just got to start somewhere, and as you said, your first screenplay is not the final screenplay, so you just write one, and you can edit and work on it from there. So,
It reminds me, I have to write a 5-page outline by midnight tonight. I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
all right. Well, listen, I always liked writing myself to some degree, and yeah, I believe a good script is amazing. So, thanks for the tips. All right,
Yeah.
let's talk about a little bit of a movie review. James Bond, Spectre. Tell me what this movie's about.
So this is the fourth installment of the Daniel Craig era of the Bond films. I've only seen the Daniel Craig ones, and I have also seen the first Connery one. But I
Hmm.
think one thing I hear a lot about the Daniel Craig era specifically is they're less one-offs the way that like Sean Connery's and like all of the older Bonds were. Every movie was just sort of its own thing that existed on its own, and there wasn't really a big connection point.
Yeah.
These films, the Craig era, it's far more like a linear narrative throughout the five films, like
Well, I
Quantum
did
of
just see
Solace.
Casino Royale, as I mentioned, and in that movie, he just became Double O, I guess,
Yeah.
which I didn't realize was a thing. So yeah, I could see the point that yeah, he's continuing to grow through the movies a little bit as well.
And there's narrative connections, not just thematic ones. Like 2008's Quantum of Solace picks up literally like 10 minutes after the end of Casino Royale. When
Right.
he captures Mr. White, it literally takes place like 10 minutes later, where they're
Yeah.
interrogating Mr. White.
Yeah.
And
Okay. And
Spectre
in
is
this movie, I forget, Spectre is that's a group that's against James Bond, right?
Yeah, that's the big terrorist organization
Yeah.
led by series villain Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Yeah. What do you think? How did he do? I, yeah.
And that is probably the biggest issue with this movie is the way they try to connect everything together to the
Mhm.
previous films. Because there was a weird thing involving Blofeld and Spectre as like creative entities in the copyright space. Eon Pictures struggled to get the rights. I don't know exactly why they didn't have the rights, but for whatever reason, the rights with the earlier movies were really complicated, involved particularly with Blofeld and Spectre. So when they were doing the earlier films in the Craig era, they couldn't get the rights to Spectre, which is why they created
Oh,
the character of Mr. White in Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace is sort of a substitute for Blofeld, and his organization Quantum is sort of a stand-in for Spectre. But sometime around the time Skyfall had come out, they got the rights back
huh.
to the organization. So they've decided now that Quantum is a sub-organization of Spectre, which, cool. But the way they sort of connect everything together with Blofeld and Spectre is kind of bizarre. Because they try to tie every single villain from the past to Spectre, which like with Le Chiffre from Casino Royale and that one dude from Quantum of Solace that nobody remembers, like that makes sense because they were already part of Quantum. But the one that really throws me off is they also try to connect Raul Silva, who was the main villain of Skyfall, to Spectre, even though Skyfall makes it abundantly clear that he's not doing this for some like big terrorist plot or some global plot. He's specifically established as an independent entity who's doing his actions specifically because he wants revenge on M for a betrayal in the past. Like he is established as this independent entity, and it would not make
Mm.
sense for him not to continue being this independent entity. But this movie is just like, oh yeah, no, he was part of Spectre too, and everyone's just like, what?
Yeah, a little bit of a plot hole.
Yeah, and I think Blofeld, just in general, was a weird character because the older depictions of Blofeld in the old movies was sort of what inspired Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers films.
Hmm.
And at this point, Dr. Evil is probably more iconic than Blofeld. So they tried to sort of reinvent the character to sort of distance him from that iconic parody because the designs are like incredibly close. Like if you look at a picture of like original Blofeld and then a picture of Dr. Evil, it's like they're straight up like one-to-one designs. Like it's not even
Hmm.
like trying to be subtle. So in an attempt to sort of reinvent him, they bring in Christoph Waltz, who is famous for things like Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, a lot of Tarantino movies.
Hmm.
So they get Christoph Waltz, wonderful, wonderful actor, but I feel like he was not at his best here. Felt like he was phoning it in.
Well, it was a little weird because I remember they had a whole backstory, and he seemed like, yeah, he was with James Bond when they were young or something, like almost like trying to create some nice guy element to a villain. So I don't know. He did come off
The
as a little weird.
the funniest thing about making him James's foster brother is I'm pretty sure that is the exact backstory that Austin Powers and Dr. Evil are retconned to have in that
Mm.
franchise. So in an attempt to distance themselves from Dr. Evil, they ended up giving James and Blofeld the exact same backstory as Austin Powers and Dr. Evil.
Yeah, it was just weird. Yeah, I could see the point that it didn't really come together. I don't know because he never seemed to become that scary of a villain, really. You
Yeah.
know.
I mean, torturing Bond was definitely one of the more unique like things that a villain would do. The only one who else has ever tortured Bond in a movie is I think Le Chiffre in Casino Royale.
He did. Yeah, that was pretty rough, I'll
Yeah.
say.
That was a very quick but very brutal with Le Chiffre with the wet rag thing that he kept beating him with.
Yeah, we don't need to get to that one. That was awful. Yeah, that'll make every man squirm for
Yeah.
sure.
But I
So,
feel like the sort of slow nature of how he did it this time, how he did it and sort of taunted him. He's like, yeah, no, by the end of this, you're not going to have any idea who anyone is. Like,
yeah. All I know is why do all these villains like they torture them and then they like leave them alone as they're flying off in a helicopter in this case and expect that he's gonna die in a building and he doesn't. They never die. They never watch them die, you know.
That's the thing with Bond villains is they're usually like kind
They're
of
not very smart somehow. And this guy too, Blofeld's supposed to be super smart, and then why did he just normally they would just shoot him, right? Like
the only villains I think I've seen that are like really, really like actually try to make sure he's dead is Safin in the final movie in Craig's films, No Time to Die. He was kind of underutilized, but he actually like tries to finish Bond off himself. He's like, okay, you're taken to. He's like, okay, this isn't going how I want to, so I have to kill you now.
yeah. Although Blofeld almost died 3 or 4 times too.
Yeah,
So
he blew up like 3 times. It's
yeah. He lost an eye, I think, at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so they could give him the scar so he would kind of resemble his
The-
original counterparts.
yeah, they wanted him to look like Dr. Evil.
Yeah, but this movie had a lot of going for it. Like I know we seem to be very kind of negative about this, but I do feel like it still had a lot going for it despite everything.
Like
Particularly
what?
cinematography department. The cinematographer is a man named Hoyt van Hoytema. I probably pronounced that horrendously wrong, but Um, he is actually Christopher Nolan's go-to cinematographer from Interstellar onwards. He's still working with Nolan today, and you can tell, even in this movie, it's like, yeah, this movie was a mess, but like, good Lord, it is stunning to look at.
It
Like,
did have some cool scenes. I remember on the island and some of the pictures from there, for example. Yeah, so it looked cool.
and the action sequences were fairly solid. Like, I like that scene on the train with Dave Bautista
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and
Okay.
the chase with the plane. That was a cool scene.
Anything else you liked about the movie?
The music was really good. It was scored by Thomas Newman, who he's part of the very famous clan of film composers because he is related to Alfred Newman and Randy Newman. So
I
pretty,
didn't know there were brothers there. Yeah, I only heard of Randy Newman.
I don't think they're brothers. I think Thomas Newman and Randy Newman are cousins.
Uh,
And Alfred Newman, I think, is like their grandfather or something, or like
huh.
granduncle. Because Alfred Newman is obviously the guy who did the 20th Century Fox fanfare and a lot of scores in the 30s, 40s, 50s.
Hmm.
One of the old.
It is pretty crazy how yeah, how these families stay in the business like this are related. Yeah.
Thomas Newman's actually doing a score for the next Star Wars movie, Starfighter, next year,
Okay.
which should be interesting.
So what is your overall rating for Spectre?
Solid 7 out of 10. I think
Seven
this
out of 10?
I think for what it's worth, this still took Bond's character in an interesting direction, especially after the death of M in Skyfall.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, he feels kind of directionless at this point in his life, and he's trying to find a reason to like exist beyond just to kill people.
Yeah. I do think Daniel Craig does he's good as Bond. I mean, I've seen him in some other movies and I'm not always a big fan, but as Bond, he does a good job.
I really like him in the Knives Out movies as well.
Yeah. I
He
haven't
also
seen all those,
he
so
very famously hates playing Bond. He
yeah.
probably retrospect because the development of this film in particular was sort of just a mess
Hmm.
and nothing ended up working out because both Craig had more creative input on this particular film. He had a producer credit, and
Uh,
him and director Sam Mendes were constantly at odds with the studio, with Eon's executives, and they were like trying to like make the movie and Eon keep shooting down their ideas. Like at one point the opening song they were going to get a song by Radiohead because Craig and Mendez were both big fans of the band and the band was a big fan of James Bond. They'd done a song like 20 years ago that was I believe inspired by some of the older Bond films and they recorded like a whole unique song for it and then when they were given the song the studio executive said it's too dark and I'm like too dark for a
mhm.
Bond movie.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. It's funny about a producer credit. I was listening to something, and one of the actresses recently said she was a producer in the movie she was in, but didn't know it until the movie came out and saw her name on the screen. And she said, she's like, I didn't do anything to produce anything, but apparently my agent negotiated I get to get a producer's credit. So
Yeah.
it's curious to see. Well, they often have a lot of producers, and they probably don't all do everything.
Yeah. I think producers really are more about funding the film than anything.
Yeah,
And sometimes they're creatively involved, and a lot of the times directors and writers will produce their films, and actors will sometimes.
right. Yeah,
Actors are doing it more and more the last like decade or two.
yeah.
They've been producing the films they star in a lot more often.
All right. Well, let's move on now to Star Wars time. So,
Oh boy.
new Mandalorian trailer. So,
Mandalorian and Grogu.
tell me how this trailer. What do we think this movie is going to do versus this TV show?
Um, so this has still not fully sold me. That it's going to take a lot for them to sell me on this movie
Yeah,
because
you're not looking forward to it necessarily.
not really, no.
You're going to go see it, of course.
Absolutely. I'm not going to be happy about it, but I'll see it. Because the problem is that like season one was incredible. Season two of the show was still pretty good, but you could see the cracks starting to form. And then we shoehorn a Boba Fett spin-off show in between seasons two and three, in which major story regressions happen in the show that lead into season three, and then season three was just a disaster beyond comprehension.
And now they're going to make a movie after that.
Yeah. I
So
feel
this
like
takes place after the show.
yes, this takes
Okay.
place sometime after the events of both season three and the Ahsoka show, which was probably happening around the same time in universe, if not a little bit after.
The script in season three, I mean, this is where they just lost the story plot.
It felt so disjointed. Din Djarin felt like he took a back seat in his own show,
Hmm.
um, in favor of Bo-Katan, a returning character from the Clone Wars and Rebels, who once again has gotten away scotch-free with about her very bad past,
Right.
which she was a terrorist that tried to overthrow the planet Mandalore's government. So she got a redemption arc in the Clone Wars, but it wasn't a great redemption arc. So she can lead Mandalore's people, and then she fails at that. So then she comes back in Rebels to try and redeem herself again, and then she does, but only kind of because she just sort of gets everything handed to her, and then she fails spectacularly off screen again. So now we've got a third redemption arc where she desperately wants to lead Mandalore and she needs the power, and she just sort of accidentally keeps getting things handed to her, whilst our main character just sort of happily just waddles along and just sort of does his own thing and doesn't really feel like he's even important to the show anymore because he just keeps giving up every single piece of character development he could have possibly had. Like
Huh.
in season two, he loses his ship, the Razor Crest. That's back in the movie now. He has to give up Grogu to Luke Skywalker, but to go train with Luke Skywalker. But then Grogu comes back in the Boba Fett show, and now they're back together like nothing changed. Or he takes off his helmet to say goodbye to his son because he finally starts to realize that the way of his little delusional cult is not the only way to be a true Mandalorian. But then in two episodes into season three, he goes to the waters of Mandalore and redeems himself. So mostly because Pedro Pascal was never actually on set in season three and they needed an excuse to keep his helmet on.
Ah.
Which they're undoing that where they're undoing the undoing because in the trailer for the movie they show him getting his helmet removed. It's like, so we undid this powerful moment and
Why
sort
was he not
of
on set? I mean,
he's a very busy man nowadays. At that same around the same time season three was shooting, he was probably working on Gladiator 2 and The Last of Us around the same time.
so they just didn't want to hold up the show, so they,
Yeah, he did
yeah.
voice work in post-production and the body doubles were in costume the whole time.
Wow, okay. Got it. But
I
he's
will
back in
say,
this movie, and it seems like there's some other famous people in this movie.
yeah, we've got Sigourney Weaver joining the cast.
Yeah, that's
She
big. Has she
she
been in other Star Wars characters before or
No,
no?
this is her first time joining the franchise. She's playing a character called Colonel Ward, who is a New Republic officer and presumably a pilot from behind the scenes in like toys. We've seen her in an X-Wing flight suit. So we know she's gonna hop in an X-Wing at some point or be in a flight suit. We don't
Right.
see that much in the trailer. In the trailer, so we only really see a little bit of her.
Mm,
giving Mando his next job. Because at the end of season three, Mando went to his New Republic friend Carson Teva, who's a New Republic pilot, and
mm,
agrees to be like a freelance agent for them, hunting down warlords for the Empire. Once he figures out that his own nemesis, Moff Gideon, was part of some bigger scheme to restore the Empire, which is sort of building up to the big epic climax movie that's going to take place after this and after Ahsoka season two
mm.
that they're
Got it.
building up to. So
Who
we're
else is in this movie? New
uh,
people.
we've got Jeremy Allen White from the hit show The Bear. He's
Yeah,
playing.
that should be good. I
He's,
saw him in this Bruce Springsteen movie.
yeah, I saw that a couple months ago as well.
Yeah, it was pretty good. What he's playing Rhoda the Hutt.
Yeah, that is Jabba's son,
Yeah. Does he
and
look
that
like Jabba? I
he's
assume.
incredibly muscular, and he's this is not the first time. He's not a new character either. This character debut in the Clone Wars movie in 2008. The whole plot of the Clone Wars movie was Anakin and Ahsoka have to rescue Rada the Hutt so as not to risk the Hutt joining the Separatists in the
Hmm.
war. And that was an incredibly bizarre movie that probably wasn't that was never even meant to exist, but
Does Rhoda the Hutt look like Jabba the Hutt? So Jeremy is just doing voice.
we believe he's just doing the voice, yes.
Okay.
Um, Rhoda is a gladiator in this movie, and he's, for whatever reason, incredibly muscular, which,
Jabba the Hutt didn't even move.
yeah, well, it turns out Hutts are capable of being, and this isn't even a new development. There was a character in the comics named Gracchus the Hutt who was also incredibly muscular.
Hmm.
So we're like, yeah, this is apparently a thing Hutts can do.
But they
Um,
don't move very fast. It doesn't seem.
I don't know. He was fighting Mando a little bit in the trailer, and he was moving pretty good for a Hutt.
Okay, we'll have to do a little. I have to do a little more understanding of the Hutts, I guess. But
Admittedly, he's a lot younger than Jabba was. Jabba at the time of his death was around 400 years old. Rhoda is maybe 30.
okay, I'll be curious to see what they look like.
Yeah, we see a couple more Hutts in the trailer as well. We see these two Hutt siblings who tried to take over Jabba's territory in the Boba Fett show
Hmm.
briefly in the trailer. And we see a couple other returning characters. Namely, we see Zeb from Star Wars Rebels. He was one of the main characters in Rebels, and he had a cameo in season three, but it looks like he's going to have a bit of a larger role in this film.
Yeah. Okay.
And we also catch our first glimpse at Embo, who is a bounty hunter who appeared in the Clone Wars show, the,
Hmm.
who has not been seen in over a decade, but we're pretty sure the only reason he's back is because Mando co-writer and executive producer slash Lucasfilm chief creative officer Dave Filoni is the one who voiced him in the show.
Uh, so
So
he'll do some here too, or be
most
him, I
like
guess.
Martin Scorsese is also in this apparently.
Yeah. What role could he have?
It's just a cameo, but they showed the cameo in the trailer where there's this little Ardenian, which is an alien species. They're kind of monkey-like creatures with four arms. And
Hmm.
it wasn't confirmed right away, but there was just a little joke where he's running this little food stand and Mando offers him like a big paycheck for information. And he's like, yeah, I'll give you whatever. And then Mando says, I'm looking for a hut. And then he's just like, we're closed now. Thank you. And it's just like, you could tell that was Scorsese's voice. And it's so funny because whenever Scorsese voices an animated character, because this is not even the first time he's voiced like a CGI character, he was in the movie Shark Tale 22 years ago.
What? I didn't know that.
And
No.
every time Martin Scorsese voices a character, they, for whatever reason, always give that character his like humongous eyebrows.
Right. Right.
So we've got this little alien who, funny enough, the species of this alien is an Ardenian, which the species first appeared in Solo: A Star Wars Story in 2018 with the character of Rio Durant. And Rio Durant, funnily enough, was voiced by Jon Favreau, who's directing this film.
Oh, John Favreau's directed this movie.
Yes,
Okay.
he was the showrunner for Mando. It was his show.
Yeah, I think I remember him, yeah, doing some of that. So yeah, okay.
Though he only ever directed one episode in the entire show. There's a total of 24 episodes across the three seasons, but the only
Yeah.
episode of the show he actually directed was the season two premiere.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That's promising. He's a pretty good director, it seems. So
solid, but I don't really know what was going on in season three, but I'm from what I've seen visually, it looks a little bit better. There was a teaser trailer back in September, and it just looked like another tip. Like if you didn't like specifically tell me that this, if I didn't already know that it was a movie, I would have assumed it was just some Disney Plus special. Because from
Yeah.
a visual and a production standpoint, it doesn't really do anything
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
differentiate itself to make it seem like, okay, this makes sense. This is going to be
Well,
bigger.
it does always seem odd, like when you have 3 seasons of a TV show, why are they making a movie now? Personally,
Money,
why wouldn't they just make season four?
money. They really want that money. And they've learned in the past that when you've got a movie which the entire marketing campaign is carried by the silly little alien doing cutesy things, that's apparently a surefire bet to make metric tons of money, especially if the movie releases in late May, because they did the exact same strategy with the Lilo and Stitch remake, which was not very good, but and they didn't even market that very well, but that crossed 1 billion like with these. So they're just like, yeah, we'll just do that for Star Wars. We're gonna make the next Star Wars movie, and we're just gonna make a bunch of like silly videos of Grogu being Grogu, and $1 billion easy.
You think it'll make $1 billion?
I'm not 100% sure. The marketing campaign's been really, really bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, for the Super
But,
Bowl,
but
they did
this but this also has it's had, yeah, 3 seasons of a TV show already, and recently Stitch was a little bit about people wanting to go see an old movie that they'd seen with their kids, but
true, but I do
we'll
think the
see.
marketing here is catering more to kids. Again, I think they're going to
Yeah.
do a lot of stuff with just we're little cute little alien doing silly things.
Yeah.
And again, that strategy worked for Lilo and Stitch, which had the same release slot last year as well. The second to last Friday of May, that's the exact same release slot. So,
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of Grogu toys this summer.
oh, absolutely. They've just announced like 4 different Funko Pops, a new brick built Lego set of him, even though there's already 2 different brick built Grogu Lego sets still on shelves.
Yeah.
Like they're going berserk as per the usual. We're getting plushies and action figures and little bobblehead, everything you can imagine. If it's a toy brand that exists, then Grogu is there.
Yeah.
They
All
only,
right. Well, this comes out when end of May.
yeah, May 22nd. It
All
will
right.
be the
Let me
first
know. Maybe I'll go with you.
it'll be the first theatrically released Star Wars film since Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, which was in 2019. Um,
Okay.
I only sort of half count this though, because this was there's been a lot of talk that this might have been season four reworked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's been sort of debates and conflicting sources suggesting that either this is season four reworked or season four still exists as a separate entity, and
Right.
people cannot really determine which possibility is stupider. But
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we'll see.
yeah,
Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda. So for next week, though, we got a couple topics. We're going to talk about some movie scores, best movie scores of all time. So we'll see what we come up with there. We're going to talk about a couple of movie reviews. I think we decided to do another James Bond
yep,
movie, No Time to Die. So I got to go check that one out. And then The
mentioned
Rip.
something else, didn't we? We did. Oh yeah, the rip.
And The Rip, which I know is a streaming movie, but that's yeah, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. So yeah, we'll see. And then for Star Wars time, we're gonna talk about some upcoming Star Wars video games, right? And talk about
Yep.
how they what they are doing to the Star Wars galaxy. So
Yeah, there's a lot in some stages of development, but they cannot seem to make up their mind on whether or not they're actually going to remember to market them or even develop them beyond initial announcements.
hmm. You see name what's your next movie in the theaters you're seeing?
That will be Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, which is not, well, it is next week, but it won't be before our next episode. I'll see.
Gotcha. So 2 weekends from now.
Yeah. The
All right.
following episode, we can talk about it. That'll be episode 8. We can talk about that.
Sounds good.
That's one I'm excited for, so I'm perfectly okay going in more depth about that one. And that can be our review of the week for not next episode, the following one.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Yep,
That's a wrap.
that's a wrap.